no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
It's the size of Texas, Mr. President.
Get off my plane.
I see dead people. We're in the middle of a war. It's time to pick a side.
Welcome in to Season 3, Episode 7 of Duel of the Greats. We have two very fascinating movies tonight. The Matrix versus Dark City. Both these films came out very close to each other, and certainly The Matrix was the more popular release, but Dark City has a little bit of a cult following. I'm sure both of my attorneys here will point out that they actually use some of the same sets and some of the same production design. But I'm gonna start this episode in a little bit of a different way than we've ever done it, to my knowledge. So Steve has The Matrix. Steve is going to be defending The Matrix tonight. Jeff is going to be defending Dark City. And I'm just going to say something, and I want to be fully transparent as the judge. I'm going to say something. And Jeff, don't flip out, because I'm gonna say it right from the beginning, but let me explain myself. I, as the judge, am just saying right off the bat from the very beginning, The Matrix is the better movie. I believe The Matrix is the better movie. I don't think anything is going to change my mind that The Matrix is the better movie.
All right, we're done here. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
But the reason I say that is because I really want to dedicate myself tonight to listening to the arguments. And for that reason, I think Steve actually has the heavier lift tonight, because it's going to be harder for him to tell me something about The Matrix that I don't already know. Whereas with Dark City, which I watched for the very first time in my life this week, I'm very eager to hear what Jeff has to say. I'm ready to be convinced. I don't think I'm going to be convinced, but I really am going to base
thanks
who
for
wins tonight
sharing
on the
that
argument.
Here.
Yes, and the reason I wanted to come right out and say that. And I know that seems unfair, but I actually am trying to create a level of fairness by just admitting that I know that I like The Matrix more. I don't think anything is going to be said to change
Now
my
hold up here.
personal
Now hold up
enjoyment.
here. You said you've said two different things here. You said The Matrix is a better movie, and you said you like it more. I mean, both things can be true, but I just want to be clear here what we're talking about.
Let me amend myself. I enjoy The Matrix more. And I don't think anything that Jeff or Steve is going to say is going to change my opinion on that.
I'm fine.
But-
Once again, we're done
this
here.
Is,
I'll see
this
you
is
next
not
week.
about enjoyment. This is about the movie, the better movie. So I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this.
And that's why. And again, even if I think The Matrix is a better movie, I'm eager to hear from you, Jeff. And I think Steve has the heavier lift. And I'll tell you something else I did to handicap Steve here a little bit.
I have a motion too when we're ready. Sorry, I'll let you finish, but I have a motion to put before the court.
I'm going to hear your motion right after I say what I did this week. I watched Dark City for the first time, and then to handicap Steve, I did not watch The Matrix, but I watched both The Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. Okay? So I actually watched the sequels, but not The Matrix, which I think maybe hurts Steve a little bit.
But see, this is kind of perfect, because this actually falls into maybe it's not perfect based on what you just said, since it might hurt Steve's argument. But may it please the court, the motion I like to present before are honorable, because that's what you are. You're an honorable man,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Carter. So The Matrix is undeniably more popular, and the cultural impact it had is light years away from Dark City. 100%. There's no way to argue that, because it's just.
But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
But I mean, Star Wars has a bigger cultural impact than just about every movie, but there are plenty of movies that I would say are far better than Star Wars, as much as I love Star Wars. So again, we're talking about a better movie here, not the movie with the most cultural impact. But the motion that I'd like to present before the court is, with The Matrix, with both these movies, but especially with The Matrix, we've had 25 plus years of discourse. We've had 3 sequels two that were direct sequels. One was kind of a reboot sequel thing that just came out a couple years ago. But three separate sequels. Now, I think the important thing that we need to do here is realize that we are talking about The Matrix versus Dark City, not The Matrix Reloaded, not The Matrix Revolutions, not The Matrix Resurrections. Okay, so there's a lot of iconic, great stuff in the Matrix series that when people think of the Matrix, they may think of them, but wasn't actually in the original Matrix. The incredible highway chase scene where they're fighting on top of semi trucks and just one of the coolest action sequences ever. That was Matrix Reloaded. That wasn't the original. The scene where um the Zion rave, right? The scene where Neo fights 100 different Agent Smiths. That was Matrix Reloaded. The scene where Neo confronts the architect and he's got the wall of possible Neos and all the different things. That was Matrix Revolutions. That wasn't the Matrix. So I just want to make it clear that we're talking about the Matrix versus the Matrix Revolution. We can talk about the cultural impact of the Matrix, but I want to make it clear we don't attribute things that happened in the sequels, and that includes additional information we were provided in the sequels that therefore go back and retroactively change information that we have in the original. I don't think
that's fair.
it's
I
hard.
think
It's hard to remove that entirely, but I think we should try our best to make sure we do that.
I grant your motion, and I will say that you have every right to object, and I, as the judge, will strike things from the record if I feel like they are leaning too hard. Because I am also a Reloaded apologist. Not the other ones necessarily, but I do think Reloaded is a very fascinating sequel. Which, if you follow my TikTok, you would know I made a TikTok about it a couple weeks ago. So I absolutely grant that motion. Steve seems incredibly bored. He bored to the point that I think he's just overly confident as he sits there.
Neither actually.
He
It's
expressed
just
this to me today.
it's already been like determined that you're gonna rule against the Matrix just to be contrarian at this point. If we had to,
See, now he's trying to goad you into doing
well, look, you
rulings
just went on
for
a
the Matrix.
10-minute spiel about how we can't consider anything outside of the like we're stacking the deck
I
against the
didn't say we
Matrix,
consider. I said
one
we
of
couldn't
the
consider
most
sequels.
influential films in the
No,
history of
no.
cinema.
I said
We've had to spend
cultural
15
impact.
minutes tearing it down
cultural impact was
just to
allowed.
put it on an even keel here.
I said cultural impact was totally relevant and is part of the discussion. I said that things that happened not in this movie are not part of the discussion, and that should be fair. When we talked season 1, when we had Ridley Scott versus Steven Spielberg, we talked about Alien and Aliens together. We specifically made a point to bring those together. Had we not, and just talked about Alien
I
versus
don't think
Jurassic
we did
Park.
that.
Yeah, we did.
We did
We talked
Alien
about
versus
Jurassic Park and the
Jaws.
Lost World.
No, you're thinking Prometheus and Covenant.
That's what
You
I'm
don't even
thinking
know
of.
what the hell you're talking about. Get out of here.
Same point exists though. Like we talked about, we specifically made a point to bring those two movies together, and we have not done that with this. Obviously, because Dark City doesn't have any sequels.
I wonder why that is.
And I will explain why that is.
Because it lost
In
money.
my argument, no, it's a much
You're
better
right.
reason that
it
the
did
Matrix
make $200,000. It netted $200,000. So
I just want
a real Hollywood success.
Money is the real decider on what makes a good movie, right? We've decided that.
All right, order in the court.
That's
Order in the court. Gentlemen, I will hold you both in contempt, and I will end this episode with no winner. Cut you off if I have to. Okay? So everyone just calm down.
I would just like to interject that I actually, while I pretty much agree with most everything Nate said to start, he has a very valid point because this isn't as a matter of how good Matrix is. As with every one of these, it's supposed to be, you need to explain why it's better than Dark City. And then you can't really lean on all the things that made Matrix what it was. You need to specifically address what it does better than Dark City does.
All the things that made it what it was are why it's self-evident.
But it's not a matter of how good it is. It's what it does better than Dark City. And like I would say as an outside, I don't want to hear every argument we've already always heard about Matrix. I want to hear it compared to
Well,
what Dark City does.
That's handicapping me.
Well,
Sorry, this
but that's the
culturally
point.
significant film that has been dissected and discussed for 25 years. You can't say any of those points.
No,
that
I'm not.
anyone's
I'm not.
talked about for
I'm just
25
saying,
years.
don't make it so heavy-handed because you have to explain what it does better than the movie it's up against.
Yeah, you can't just say The Matrix is better because people are talking about The Matrix more today than Dark City.
Because it
It's like,
is,
that's
and
a-
we all
that's a
know it
silly
is.
argument.
Well, no, it's better because it like essentially defined action movies and set a cultural touchstone that has been
All right, well,
pointed to.
let's save this for arguments, okay?
Let's do this.
We're
Here's what
doing it. We're
gonna do.
arguing. It happened.
Well, no,
Here's what
we're
we're gonna
this.
do.
We have neither of us have been appointed the floor.
Gentlemen, I will hold you both in contempt. I will cut this episode off. It will be the shortest episode we've ever had. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I've already decided who's gonna go first. One thing I'm gonna remind you of, but you don't need to add any commentary to this. Something we've not done yet this season that you might both consider, because Brandon has already interjected. I think he's very invested in this. Is you do have an appeal we've not used, so both of you keep that in your back pocket. You don't necessarily have to use it tonight, but I sense that there's a lot of animosity building up here. Okay, and already I can tell we're gonna say some things we don't mean. We're gonna cross a line, and we just need to be careful. I would like to start by. I think I am going to, just because. Well, I've already decided. I had decided this before we even got into a fight. I do want to hear Jeff go first. I'm picking that I would like to hear Jeff's arguments first for Dark City, your opening statements. So, Jeff, you have the floor, and then Steve will go to you after that.
All right. So to start off here, as we all have known, my favorite writer, especially when it comes to movie criticism, is Roger Ebert. Multiple times this season have I had that thrown in my face with reviews
Objection.
against me.
I'm going to preliminarily object here because Roger Ebert did the DVD commentary for this fucking movie. Roger Ebert had a pecuniary interest in this film. Therefore, his character is already impeached. So anything Roger Ebert says about
precedent has allowed. Precedent has allowed.
Gentlemen, as someone who has previously in this season utilized the Roger Ebert card many times, Jeff, I'm going to allow it, but watch yourself, as they always say in the Law and Order. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to allow it, but watch yourself. Okay. I will allow the Roger Ebert card.
You've already made enough errors, Your Honor, that this is going to be reversed on appeal in 5 seconds, no matter which way you rule.
I've got a few quotes that I'm going to intersperse through my argument here. So first, I just want to lead off with the very first paragraph of Roger Ebert's 4-star review of Dark City, by the way. The movie that he ranked.
He was financially involved with.
No, he was not.
He was afterwards.
Yeah, after the review. So the review he made, there was no financial, and there wasn't even any, I don't even know if he was paid.
Can you prove that? We don't know that.
Yeah, I can prove it. Absolutely.
You can prove that he wasn't paid? Oh,
no, I'm saying that he wasn't part of the DVD commentary when he wrote the review. So Steve is out of order, by the way, Judge. Slacking over there. Anyway, now if I may continue with my argument without interruption from my counselor,
Jeff,
from my opposing counsel.
We're going to allow Jeff an opening argument with no more interruptions. Please continue, Jeff.
So the opening paragraph of Roger Ebert's 4-star review of Dark City, the #1 movie from 1998. Dark City by Alex Proyas is a great visionary achievement, a film so original and exciting it stirred my imagination like Metropolis and 2001: A Space Odyssey. If it is true, as the German director Werner Herzog believes, that we live in an age starved of new images, then Dark City is a film to nourish us. Now, that perfectly encapsulates what Dark City is. It is a film. As a movie, it's a show of fierce imagination that simply cannot be ignored, right? From the start, we set the stage in just an incredible way. We have just this incredible scene. A man wakes up in a bathtub, no idea who he is, where he is, why he is, anything. We've got this lamp that comes through and casts this light across the room, showing us light, shadow, light, shadow. We're immediately being shown visually what we can expect from this movie. There are things that we can't see in the shadow, There are things that will be exposed in the light, and then those things will be going back into the shadow. We don't know what's real. We don't know where to come from. We don't know what's happening. All we know is that this guy gets out of the bathtub and he doesn't know where he is, but in the process of trying to figure this out, he sees a goldfish on the ground and he picks it up and he saves it. He puts it in water. What what could propel this man to do this? What's going on? Then all of a sudden there's people after him and there's a bad guy, but we just saw him waste time to save a goldfish. They even mentioned this in the movie how peculiar it is. And just all of these things right away it's like, okay, this is going to be a really wild ride that we're on. And that's exactly what we get. We keep going. Every single thing right from the beginning just perfectly lines up with just noir filmmaking. I've talked multiple times on this show how horror is my favorite genre for movies. Well, my other two favorite genres are noir films. My favorite movie of all time is Double Indemnity, and science fiction films. And those three are basically all combined into this movie. Now, we continue moving forward, and then we are treated with the single best looking shot in either of these two movies when we are first introduced to Jennifer Connelly, her character at the nightclub. Just an unbelievable noir. The camera starts at the top, we see her from behind, it moves down, the lighting is perfect, the set design is amazing. It's a place, it looks slightly familiar, but also different. What's going on? We hear the song in the background, this sultry singer, like it just sets the mood absolutely perfectly. There are scenes in The Matrix that are more technically difficult to pull off and are very impressive in that regard. And I'm not gonna mince any words here. I love The Matrix. It's a very good movie. But there is no scene in either movie that reaches the level of just sheer art as that scene does. It's a phenomenal scene there. And we get it a couple times and it changes slightly the next time we see it, just as the movie is slightly changing with our thoughts, our perceptions of it. But just it's an absolutely stunning scene. Side note, shortly after this, we're introduced first to the in the phone booth. Both movies feature phone booths prominently. Remember those? Remember phone booths? We were trying to explain this to my daughter. What a world we live in. She's like, "A what?" Yeah,
There was
it was
there
so
was a movie called Phone Booth
there was a movie
where
called it was a
there
good
was a
one.
guy entirely in a phone booth. It's actually not a bad movie. Early Colin Farrell. Check it out.
The premise sounds silly, but it was pretty good.
And it has
Katie Holmes was in that as well.
who's the
Kiefer
Kiefer
Sutherland also
Sutherland
in
is
that.
the voice.
Yeah.
Yes, he's like unseen, but he's the voice. It's a perfect guy to do that voice. Sorry, I did not mean
No,
to
you're
interrupt.
good. And perfect. Kiefer Sutherland. Um, maybe the only thing I didn't like about this movie is Kiefer Sutherland's like weird sort of diction and how he talked. He was clearly going for something, some sort of a like weird breathy type dialogue. I'm not sure if that was his own take or the director or whatever. Didn't necessarily land as well with me, but his character overall was still good. Just the way he talked, I wasn't a huge fan of that. But that's really my only gripe. But from the start, we're kind of getting whiplash a little bit. There's all these things going on. This guy's on the run. We see this woman in the bar. What's going on? We don't understand. And then the movie really grabs hold from the first tuning as it is, which is something that the strangers, the antagonists of the film, do, where they completely tear down and rebuild a city overnight in just this amazing, fascinating sequence we see of the city. There's bridges that reconstruct themselves, buildings are popping up out of nowhere, buildings are going down, they're moving around. Movies like Inception, 10 plus years later, movies like Doctor Strange have seen this to a larger degree because technology has allowed it a little bit more. But the scene moving, or I'm sorry, the city moving scenes in those movies owe probably all of that to this movie. Like just an incredible scene. It had to be at the time. These types of effects were just insane. As good as the bullet time camera was in The Matrix, the city reconstruction scenes were its equal in Dark City. Um, then we've got the pacing on this movie is nearly perfect, right? I like to call it the quick but don't hurry. that it never lingers too long on something, but it moves at a good pace. You're never bored with a scene, right? There are some times in the Matrix where you're kind of like, where are they going with this? Let's move this along. Let's get to the cool shit, because that's what Matrix is about, right? Cool shit. And it sometimes it takes a little bit to get there, but this movie, it doesn't waste any time in that regard. The editing is phenomenal. Specifically, there's a scene about 3/4 of the way through the movie where our main character John, played by Rufus Sewell, and his wife, I can't remember her name, Emma or something, played by Jennifer Connelly, they're looking for each other, and they're in different places, but the editing switches back and forth almost seamlessly. Like they'll turn the camera, but there's so much darkness always around the edges that the editing, the changing of the cuts is a little bit kind of hard to see. So it almost feels like they're right there, like they're in the same room, but we know they're not. But they're looking for each other. It was a very, very well edited, very well made movie there. And when talking about all this stuff, I've got another quote here to put. Talking about editing? Is that weird?
This
to you,
is the
Steve?
worst edited movie in the history of film.
I don't think you know anything about editing. Like literally nothing. Okay. And another quote from our friend Roger Ebert here. There's such a wealth on the screen, such an overflowing of imagination and energy. Often in FX movies, the camera doesn't feel free because it must remain within the confines of what has been created for it to see. Here, we feel there's no limit. Right? Perfect. I mean, that's essentially what I'm trying to get at there. Then we move into the themes of the movie, right? Dark City has really deep, sound philosophical questions that it raises. It talks about identity. Who are we? Where are we? How do we belong? Why do we belong? What is going on? What is our place in the world? And then once we find that place, what do we do with it, right? Roger Ebert, another quote, says, "This film contains ideas and true poignance, a story that has been thought out and has surprises right to the end. It's romantic and exhilarating. Watching it, I realized the last dozen films I'd seen were about people standing around talking to one another. Dark City has been created and imagined as a new visual place for us to inhabit. It adds treasure to our notions of what can be imagined." It looks at once all these questions that our main character John is presented with of who he is. Why is he special? Where does he fit into all this, into what the strangers are trying to do, into what the rest of the people in the world are trying to do in this world that's been created by the strangers? What's his place in all this? And it's a question that the Matrix asks as well. But the Matrix stops short of answering it, besides giving us the Deus Ex Machina of, well, you're the one. That's why. That's the answer. No, that John's place in the world is defined, and then he's given a scenario of, okay, now he knows where he is in the world. What does he do with this? What does he do with if you can make your own way in the world? How do you handle that? What are you going to do? How are you going to? And we get answers to those questions. Those are questions that in the Matrix it poses those questions but doesn't answer them. Then we've got I talked about the editing. The production design here is absolutely amazing. Some of the effects in the Matrix are very good, but the practical effects, which in the Matrix there are almost none, and the production design in Dark City are absolutely amazing. The In the Matrix, the majority of the movie takes place in the real world. As far as practical effects that we get, we get their little ship, which is no different than hardly any other ship we've seen. When it comes to lots of sci-fi movies, you know, there's an argument that's going to be made, likely by and he's already made it, by my opposing counsel, about how Matrix redefined a genre, right? Which no, it didn't. Simply put, Matrix. See, if we remember back to season one, let's harken back to season one, right? Where we talked about the Gladiator, and one of the things we talked about was that Hollywood had essentially forgotten or moved on from the sword and sandal epic, right? And Gladiator revived that. Gladiator redefined that for a new generation. Sci-fi movies, action movies, kung fu movies, whatever genre The Matrix is pulling from, none of the many genres that it pulls from, none of them were in a place where they were forgotten or needed to be redefined. They were simply utilized. And that's fine. But if you want to try and make an argument and say that science fiction as a genre was defined by the Matrix, it's simply not true. We had over the decades previous, we've already Aliens, hell, even Alien 3 we had for the Matrix. We've had 3 Star Wars movies. We had a bunch of different Star Trek movies. We had just loads of Blade Runner, Terminator 1 and 2, all these movies, Jurassic Park, all these movies that helped to define this genre that came before, some just a few years before The Matrix. So this idea that, oh, The Matrix completely redefined science fiction or action, it just, none of that is true. What it did redefine was how to do certain special effects, which it gets absolute credit for. But if that's what you're going to hang your hat on, then that's just simply not the argument to be made. There's a I have some quotes now from Roger Ebert's review of The Matrix, which he gave as a 3-star review. Remember, The Dark City got 4 stars, of course. The Matrix recycles the premises of Dark City and Strange Days, turns up the heat and the volume, and borrows the gravity-defying choreography of Hong Kong action movies. It's fun, but it could have been more. Says it's cruel, really, to put tantalizing ideas on the table and then ask the audience to be satisfied with a shootout in a martial arts duel at the end. His final quote from his review of The Matrix, he says, "The Matrix did not bore me. It interested me so much indeed that I wanted to be challenged even more. I wanted it to follow its material to audacious conclusions to arrive not simply at victory but at revelation. I wanted an ending that was transformational, like Dark Cities, and not one that simply throws us a sensational action sequence. I wanted, in short, a third act," which admittedly was lacking from The Matrix. So much so that they had to make 2 different movies in subsequent years to try and finish telling a story that they still couldn't succinctly tell, that no one knows what the hell's going on. And Dark City told a story that was coherent and made sense and told the story that Matrix tried to or wanted to tell, and they did it in 1 hour and 41 minutes instead of the 6 hours or however long it took the Matrix trilogy. So I ask you, when you say something's a better movie, do you want a movie that is good that you can go to and you can have your questions answered, you can have thought-provoking ideas presented without just being washed away in the end, having a good action sequence to end the film as well, they straight up in the 3rd Matrix movie, they straight up lifted the fight between Neo and Agent Smith when they're floating above the city. They straight up lifted that straight from Dark City. That's literally the fight at the end. So, do you want a movie like that where you can get all of it with Dark City, or do you want a movie that takes you to the point of these interesting questions, these interesting answers, and then drops it all in the 3rd act just so that it can have some admittedly really cool action sequences? My argument obviously goes towards Dark City.
Thank you, Jeff. I think that you said a number of things that, based on his general physical mannerisms, I get the sense that Steve is going to want to.
I don't even know where to start. There's so much falsehood has been spewed in the last 15 minutes. Just literal inaccurate statements. What did you say? You said there were like no physical effects in the Matrix? It's
practical effects. Those are
no
not
practical effects.
Practical effects.
Guess what? There were a shit ton. You know that crazy scene where the helicopter hits the glass and it looks like water and it goes blah, 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 blah. Guess what? That's not a computer. They did that with practical effects. So much of this movie was practical effects. It was the marriage of practical. Yes, it was the marriage of practical.
You gave one example. The entire city of Dark City was a practical built city.
Okay. What about the little telekinesis out of his face? Was that practical?
No, I didn't.
What about when John Hurt floats off into the space? Are you talking production design or practical or effects? Because
they're both. Because the entire city was the design of the city was production design. The movement of the city when it rebuilt itself was practical effects.
Regardless, you said false statements about the Matrix, which, yes, you literally did. ladies and gentlemen, he's
no. I said I didn't say there were no practical effects. How is it a false statement where I said were there?
I'm gonna add something just as my filmmaking background. I'm not arguing one way or the other. Something that a lot of people don't know about the bullet time sequences is that they are partially practical effects.
Yes, the
How they
gun
How
fu, the
so? It was
kung fu, the
entirely green
flying through
screen.
the
It
air
was
is
entirely green
practical.
screen. They set up. I saw this.
No,
I saw it being made. There were 26
It
cameras
was
set
there.
up
Proof
on,
was
and
there.
they.
that's what I'm saying though, is
No,
that they were shooting
I
it
saw a
in
fucking
camera.
documentary on it. What do you want from me?
Well, a
I want you to
practical
stop
effect
lying about the movie.
hang on. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with anyone. A practical effect. Let's get our definition of practical effect. A practical effect is something that's going to be done in camera with the actual physical things that we could build on a set and we could shoot in camera. Bullet time they did with green screen, but they
The only
also
thing
it's
real
not
was Keanu Reeves.
but it's what I'm saying though is that they didn't design the shot on a computer. They actually shot it on 35 millimeter film with a series of cameras. It was designed and they cut that film together as a practical effect, and then they did add the world around them in. So it is a little bit of both. I think you're both right and you're both wrong. It's more practical than
I'm
people
not
give it
wrong
credit
because
for.
I said what you said. It's the marriage of practical and CGI. Matrix helped pioneer it and launched the movie making industry into a new realm. Here's I'll read. Is it my turn? May I please the court?
Yes, please go ahead.
The Matrix was selected for being culturally or artistically significant and is now in the National Film Registry because it's, it changed so much and helped solidify this new type of Hollywood movie. This is what they say about it. A visionary and complex film, the science fiction epic The Matrix employed state-of-the-art special effects, production design, and computer-generated animation, the marriage of them, to tell a story steeped in mythological, literary, and philosophical references about a revolt against a conspiratorial regime. The film's visual style, drawn on the work of Hong Kong action film directors and Japanese anime films, altered science fiction filmmaking practices with its innovative digital techniques designed to enhance action sequences. There's more, but I'm not going to keep reading.
I already admitted that the special effects were revolutionary. I wasn't arguing.
It was the special effects and the filmmaking, the collaborate or the consolidation of these multiple genres, sci-fi, action, martial arts movies, along with the state-of-the-art groundbreaking ways that they made the film that transformed filmmaking utterly and has left its mark on the cinematic landscape to this day. Dark City, nobody even knows what that movie is for the most part. It's a cult status favorite, but it's just not a better movie. You said I don't know anything about editing because I said it's, grandly hyperbolically, said it's the worst edited movie of all time. I was reacting a little bit maybe there in the moment, but this movie does not. It's supposed to be a noir film, right? It's not supposed to be, but it's inspired heavily by this with the setting, the themes. You don't get a goddamn second to breathe. Every scene is edited to within an inch of its life. It cuts off with no silence. Things go from boom, one shot to the next with hardly any chance to sit and ponder, to hear the creaking of the pipes with the steam, piping through these old buildings, to truly appreciate those lights and those shadows that you're saying are there. Because this movie just goes bam, 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 bam. The shots, they move so quickly that it's impossible to really get any true appreciation for the story that's supposed to be unraveling in front of you or the true joy of the set, which I'm going to take a step back. After I watched these movies last night, I was like, this is going to be easy as shit. Dark City's terrible. The performances are awful. The editing is terrible. The Matrix is just going to wipe the floor with it. My original plan, my strategy, I was going to try to find as many quotes as I could from critics, just talking about how awesome the Matrix was.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, Roger Ebert was the first one I went to. So, needless to say, my strategy had to change a bit. But I came to a realization. I'm wrong to some extent about Dark City because clearly people are seeing in it something way more than I did. It's not apparently as bad as I think. But it's the edit. Oh, actually, I was thinking about this while you were spewing lies about the Matrix. How did you watch this movie?
On my TV.
Well, I know, but like what streaming service, or did you rent it, or?
It was on a service. I can't.
Amazon.
Was it on Amazon
It's on Prime.
Yeah.
So we watched the same version. So I guess you're just okay with frenetic, terrible editing. But
I got to interject here. That's a choice. That's the editing was crisp intentionally because they were putting you in the mind. They were putting you in the same state as the main character. I mean, this is an intentional choice.
This editing happens when the main character's nowhere on the screen. When the detectives are first at the crime scene, they almost cut off the lines of dialogue. It moves so fast.
How many times did they talk about time in the movie? Why is there no daylight? Don't you feel like it shouldn't? Why is time moving so quickly here? They literally slap you in the face with it. I'm sorry you couldn't get it, but that's the point of it. That's what's happening.
I understand editing as a style choice. You can help make things frenetic, make the pace feel like it's faster than it is. This just wasn't good. If you are literally making the movie incomprehensible, then it's not good. And also, you talk about deep themes and all this. This movie literally like bangs you over the head. In fact, actually, this movie literally tells you the plot of the movie and the entire basis of it in an opening voiceover that just gives away the whole game. This movie would have been 10 times better had they just not had that in there. And the director's cut doesn't have it.
Yep, there's a director's cut. Yeah. That was so. I'll maybe
say that again. What? I didn't say that again. What are you talking about?
Your Honor, kick him out. He's not even listening to the argument.
Hang on. I will say the voiceover narration at the beginning of Dark City was not the director's choice. The studio felt that the movie was going to be confusing, and I'm just stating a fact. The studio felt the movie was going to be confusing, and so they made the director add in the narration. He later made a director's cut that does not have that narration that is present. Honestly, very.
What does that sound like? What is it?
Blade Runner is exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, your boy Ridley Scott. Oh man.
Oh, okay. Your ad hominem attack doesn't do much to me.
I'm just saying, like you respected Ridley Scott's position that he was put in for Blade Runner, so I think the same respect should be played to Proyas here.
None of us watched the director's cut though. You didn't even watch it, and you're singing its praises. You watched the shitty, inferior version.
I know, but I'm saying we talked about how the narration, the voiceover narration in Blade Runner was a poor choice, and that he was forced to put it in because we didn't watch the director's cut
I understand
either.
What you're saying now. I thought you were just talking about the fact that it was the director's cut existed. Well, okay. I'm still talking about the specific thing in the voiceover. It reveals the entire plot of the movie and destroys any sort of narrative tension. I'll go ahead and admit that in I think our first episode this season, I was giving you shit because what were we talking about? It was Armageddon and
Deep Impact.
I was like, so you're telling me you can't, if you know what's going to happen, there's no way that there's tension. Here's how I distinguish that. In this movie, we're supposed to feel suspense and confusion and everything that you said the editing is supposed to make me feel by being in the shoes of the guy. We're supposed to be as confused as he is. But if they tell me what the whole fucking movie is about in the first 5 seconds,
explain this to me. How are they telling you what the whole movie is about?
Brandon, can you pull up the text to the voiceover? They literally say these guys are aliens. They came to Earth to fucking
that's the setup. It's not the plot of the movie.
It does. I mean, as an outside observer, again, I'm not taking a side. He does the narration states that they're aliens, which I think. Right, but I think that there's like him waking up in the bathtub, and I'm just saying this as an outside observer. I just watched it for the first time this week. It might have been a little bit more suspenseful if he'd woken up in the bathtub and I didn't know that
it would have been more suspenseful if he had woken up in the bathtub and we didn't know that aliens were involved. Who are these?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's aliens or humans. It matters that somebody's after him. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know why. That's a difference than saying, oh, well, like saying just because you know they're aliens means we automatically know that aliens are after this guy. Like, well,
we know they're aliens. We know what their purpose is. We know that ultimately
we don't know what their purpose is.
They say it in the opening, man.
No, because there's more information that's revealed about John and his specific purpose and why they're so interested in him.
Okay, I'll move on. This movie wastes fantastic actors Kiefer Sutherland is just atrocious in this. I don't know if it was the direction. I don't know if he did. In fact, he thought when he got the script, he thought it was a mistake. He thought it was supposed to be for his dad and that they fucked up and were like, Donald Sutherland would be great for this. And actually, he would have been really good in that role. And Kiefer Sutherland is just, I don't know what he's doing, actually. It doesn't make any sense. It's this mumbly, breathy thing that you talked about. He's mewling. The only time he actually delivers a good performance is when he's in the memory and he actually gets to play a Kiefer Sutherland type character. Wildly miscast or wildly directed. I don't know what it was, but it was terrible. It took me out of it every single time. And it was awful. Also, William Hurt is in this. And this is one I think we're just going to have to disagree on. We talked about this a little bit at lunch today. We were trying not to burn content, but we had to dance around it. I think William Hurt gives one of the worst performances in his career in this movie. And you think it's one of the best. So I don't know.
No. Whoa. That is
okay.
Not,
sorry.
that
No.
is
Okay.
Not the
All right,
conversation.
I'm sorry. I thought that's what you said. What? Well, I'll let you. What did you say? How did you say?
You're not. You said that the words that William Hurt spoke should have sounded cooler, but they didn't. I said I felt the opposite. That I felt some of the words that some of the words written for that character were not good, and the only thing that saved it was William Hurt's performance.
All right. Well, I completely disagree with that last sign for sure. Right? There's no saving this. The closest this movie comes to, I think, a good scene is, and this was actually a really good scene, when John and William Hurt's character, he's like Detective Bumfuck or something. I can't remember his name.
Bumstead.
They're in the interrogation room, and he asks him about, John asks the detective, do you ever remember it being day? And he's like, well, and then he pauses and he's like, I don't mean some far off memory from when you were a kid. And he's like, do you remember it being daylight just like yesterday or the day before? That scene is crackling with energy. And guess what? It's also not cut to within a fucking inch of its life because you can actually hear them talk the whole way through. That is the best part of that movie. Addressing some of your other things. The production design and all the rising houses and stuff. Yeah, it was very cool looking. I submit that we saw similar stuff in Metropolis in 1928. Not to the same level, but I don't think that this is as groundbreaking as you say it is. In addition, this movie feels very, very much like a moving comic book, almost like a noir, like Batman, Cape Crusade or something like this. Why do we go to the movies? What makes movies different?
Because The Matrix doesn't.
Well, it does some things visually. Hang on.
They literally were inspired by comic books.
Yeah, inspired by it. But when you're actually watching the movie, it certainly does some things visually that you don't get in any other medium. Now, I think you could get the same
everything in comic books. That's the brilliance of comic books. You get everything in those mediums. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Like bullet time, you can see bullet time happening in real time in a comic book. A 2D
I mean, you don't get movement in a comic book, but in terms of
there you go.
Anything you can imagine. Oh, so movement. Oh, okay, great. We've got movement in the Matrix. How revolutionary! Great. I'm glad we.
All right, we go to the movies. The art of movies, what makes it unique is it's a moving picture. What makes a better movie ultimately? Could this story have been told but for in movie form? The Matrix could not have, by definition. Not the way it's shot, Jeff. You're shaking your head.
That's so silly. This is just a silly argument that it could not be told. Come on.
The net result of the effect left on the viewer at the end of the Matrix could not be achieved but for moving pictures. I submit to you, and there's no way to prove this because we're just arguing here, but I submit to you that a similar effect that the movie Dark City leaves on a viewer could be achieved via a novel, a comic book. There's not much that makes that movie worth watching versus reading it or listening to a radio play or even seeing it on a stage. That kind of movement could be done in a play. The things we see in the Matrix can only be viewed on the silver screen. Now, yes, they made comic books, they did all this other stuff, but it's the end result of you sitting there having your little eyeballs popped
Literally,
in 1999.
literally written
And then I
by the
literally just
Wachowski
said,
sisters.
"Yep, you're building a straw man." I just told you
There's no straw man. Straw mans are things that don't exist. Comics about the Matrix
No, the straw man you're building
do
is that
exist.
I made an argument that said that it's impossible for
I
the
didn't
Matrix to
make that.
exist.
I didn't make that argument. You did. You
No,
literally made that argument. You
literally
said it was impossible. You said it was.
to achieve the same effect on the viewer after watching the film The Matrix, it is impossible to do that but for the visual medium. Yes, that is true.
Which you
I'm
also
not
admitted
saying
can't be
this.
proven in any way.
Well, half the shit we're saying is just argument. Half the shit, all of this is subjective. Art is subjective. I mean, all of this. But it's at some point you've handicapped me, Your Honor, in saying everything great about the Matrix we're going to just toss out before the argument begins. And then every effect that it's had on pop culture, we're going to disregard that for now. But at some point, the proof is in the pudding. This movie has changed the way multiple industries work. This movie helped to define our childhoods. Dark City is largely forgotten. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm sure I have more notes here, but mostly I know it seems like an easy out, dropping the mic and walking away and just trying to rely on that. But at some point, the proof is in the effect that it's caused. Not all popular things are better, but in this case, that's what happened. That's the case.
I think that you have both made very fascinating arguments. I had questions, but you kind of both sort of ended up addressing a lot of the questions that I had. I'm going to ask kind of a very abstract question. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to get us to what the better movie is, but it's something that I wanted to ask and I had it written down. Both of these movies, Matrix, obviously, it's robots and computers, and Dark City, it's obviously aliens and extraterrestrials. But they both are offering, in kind of a weird way, kind of a pessimistic view of the future, and looking at the future of humanity and what that means. Talk a little bit, each of you, about your movies, and I don't even want to say if it's like accurate, um, because that's not really fair. I mean, obviously, the Matrix, the computers and stuff are probably more accurate to the world we live in rather than like extraterrestrials. But talk a little bit, each of you, about sort of the vision of the future that this movie offers and what effect that has had on popular culture and maybe how it's different. So, like, how the Matrix is different than other scary computer robot movies, and Dark City is different than other scary alien movies. Talk a little bit about that. I will. Steve, just I'll hear from Jeff again, but it's been a while since he got to talk.
So with Dark City, what makes Dark City as a movie unique over the Matrix is the way it melds the different genres that it's going for. I think with the Matrix, the thing about the Matrix is every single shot, every single thing in that movie is designed to be cool. And it is. Just from the way they deliver dialogue. Lawrence Fishburne is sitting there and he's twirling a little pin thing in his or pen, I'm sorry, pill container in his hands, and he's all being precise, and the way Agent Smith talks, Mr. Anderson. Like he always talks in that manner. Granted, he's a robot, so that's probably part of it, but Lawrence Fishburne's character talks very deliberately as well. But there a lot of that is designed specifically just to be cool, and so much of it accomplishes that. I know kung fu. Like we've talked that. How many times have we quoted that probably in our lives? A bunch. So you can't deny the coolness, the impact that that's had, of course. um but when talking about like visions for humanity, I think they both bring up a really good question about disconnectedness. Like they see the future as people being further and further pushed away, further and further disconnected. And so the future, and honestly, we're cruising right towards that. So the future becomes about identity, about defining who you are and where you fit in the world, right? And the Matrix goes to it takes you to that point. It asks that question, it starts to answer it, it wrestles with it, but then it ditches it and it says, okay, we've got this big smash bang finale. We've got Morpheus is kidnapped. We got to go rescue Morpheus. Guns, 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 killing, wanton killing, all this. It's cool as shit. It's awesome. He opens his jacket, and so the guy at the going through the metal detector, I laughed my ass off in the theater, and you're supposed to laugh. That's a funny moment. That was an awesome scene. It was so cool the way it was done. Absolutely undeniable how cool that is. But we get that in lieu of truly getting satisfactory answers to that question. Because after all the shooting and the killing and the fighting and the kung fu, and after all that is done with, we get Neo in a phone booth saying, now it's going to start. I'm like, wait, the movie's ending and you're telling me now it's going to start? Now that everything's going to happen? And then he flies away. Well, what the hell's going on here? Whereas we get a more satisfactory conclusion in Dark City where the aliens are vanquished, John has control of the world now, and he's deciding what he's doing. And the first step is he's going to go back to his wife, who we find out, is not really his wife, is just some random person. But, that's where he's going to go because love and hope together are the way that he's going to move forward in his world. And we don't get that with the Matrix. And then we come back and we get two more movies. They have to, I mean, how good can you say your story is when you have to have two?
Your Honor,
Does anybody know? Does anybody know what the Matrix? No, if you ask anybody today, they'll tell you all about the I know kung fu and all the cool lines and red pills. I mean, just think about the fact. I didn't want to bring this up, but you're forcing my hand.
before you
Just think
do,
about
can I point out that he's brought up the Matrix sequels about 7 times and I haven't talked about them once. And that's supposedly one of the negatives to the Matrix as the movie here.
I said we can't attribute anything from them to the Matrix. I'm
But you
using them
sure
as
like
proof
talking
that the
about them.
first. Sure. I'm not breaking my own rule. The judge has full power here to silence me on this topic here.
What's your point about the sequels?
My point about the sequels is they in order to try and explain this story that because it's clear that Dark City was a much more well thought out film than The Matrix was. So much of that was evident in the fact that they had to make two more movies to try and finish the story that they started, and then all it did was just fuck people up even more with more confusion. Does anybody know what happened in The Matrix? Does anybody know what the final conclusion was? No. 20 years later, they still made another movie to try and explain what happened in it, a fourth movie, and still nobody knows. The only thing people know is the cool shit that happened. And that's okay. I love The Matrix. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens. And when we talk about revolutionary stuff, I absolutely agree that the special effects in The Matrix were revolutionary. I absolutely agree that they changed film in a way for the better. But if all you've got is to my movie is great because the special effects, then what is that really? Why can't we just have a sort of proof of concept and then sell that? That is that all that the Matrix is essentially a proof of concept because Dark City is a story that actually tells a story with characters and doesn't need 6 additional hours of film to try and get its point across.
Steve, Matrix, Vision of the Future, your rebuttal.
Well, it's interesting because I think in hindsight, Dark City may have tapped into truly what humans, not just Americans, but humans want more. In the Matrix's vision of the future is, we're trapped in this construct that we aren't aware of, but it's possible to break out of, and it's about breaking out of what you thought you were, what you thought you were capable of, and having a new identity and finding the power in yourself. And that is the start. So when you say at the end, well, it's just now starting, but it's the end of the movie. Well, that's the whole point. It's about the journey. And this character is now in a place where they truly know themselves and they can go on that journey. That was the transformation that occurred in the movie. So it is a full story arc. And I think in hindsight, I don't want to get into the nuances of it because I'm obviously no expert, but with the having read some stuff in preparation for this, I think that the Wachowski sisters both almost unknowingly viewed this through the lens of their own transness. They just didn't quite know it yet.
I had thought that was explicit. I thought they came back and said that.
Well, they did, but
explicitly.
they said that they didn't
have
know it
said,
at the time.
yes.
Yeah, but they
Oh, I
since,
got you.
yeah,
Okay.
they like
Okay.
since realized they're like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we're doing. So to me, it does tell a complete story. We don't have to truly find out what happens to Zion or what happens to Neo tomorrow. It's a story about a man who was in.
I got a question for you though. In that context, we don't have to truly find out, you say, but the whole point of the movie, the whole they say is to save all those things. And we don't know if they're saved at the end of the movie. They want to save Zion, they want to expel the machines, they want to do all that. We don't know if any of those things are happening. Neo says he's going to start. He's coming at them. He's coming for all of them. But so how do you marry those two when you say that we don't need to know the fate of those things when the entire movie hinges on the fate of those things?
Well, I don't necessarily think that the fate of the movie did hinge on those things. I think the fate of the movie hinged on whether Neo is going to wake up and truly become.
The entire motivation for Morpheus finding Neo was to save all those things, and Neo being the one was important because those things needed to be saved. So we have one of two things,
motivation
right?
for Neo, but to me, it's
we have one of those two things. We have an incomplete story, which is what we got, or
I reject that, but okay.
Or you're saying that the entire crux of the movie is irrelevant, which is a weird argument, but go for it.
I mean, the crux of the movie. You're saying the motivations for the characters. You're conflating that with the crux of the movie.
No, I'm not.
Sure. Those two things can be the same, but in this, the movie itself is about Neo's journey. What drives him on that journey are Zion, the One. It's irrelevant ultimately to the movie The Matrix, the single movie, whether or not Neo's the One. It's that he believes it, and
that is not at all irrelevant
to the single movie The Matrix.
No, it's not
entirely irrelevant.
Morpheus talks about why.
I didn't say whether it's relevant to Morpheus. I said it's irrelevant to
Morpheus is a character in the movie. He lights the match of the powder that starts the powder keg of the movie, and
it's
Morpheus,
irrelevant whether he is or is not the one.
You're saying
so it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
That's like saying Obi-Wan in Star Wars that his motivations were irrelevant to the movie Star Wars, and that's inaccurate.
No, I said it's irrelevant whether or not Neo actually is the one, is what I said. Not whether or not they believe he is. That is relevant because that's what motivates them, and that's what drives him.
It's they already believe that he is. It was important.
I said that.
No, you said it's irrelevant that they believe he is.
No,
they already believe he is.
I said it's irrelevant whether he is or is not. Judge Brandon,
that is not irrelevant. That is not irrelevant to the plot of the movie. That is literally the plot of the movie.
For a second ago, you were disagreeing whether I ever said it or not. So
no. I was talking about when you said it was irrelevant that they believed he was the one, but him actually being the one is an important part of the movie.
No, it's not.
You can't argue that.
I just did.
It literally is.
Very well, I would argue.
Yeah, no, you argued it poorly because it's clear. It's clear that you're wrong.
It does not matter if he's the one or not for the movie, for his journey. It matters whether he believes it.
Well, I mean, as the judge, I have to say that I think what you're both kind of getting into here with the Matrix is a level of interpretation that people can just have differences of opinions on. And I know we're avoiding talking about the sequels, but we learn and reload.
The fact that we're even having this is proof that this movie is not as shallow and as hollow as we're claiming. What I was going to say about Dark City is ultimately that character chooses to go back into the Matrix, essentially, just in a different way. He chooses to implant false memories and to coerce someone without their consent into having a life with him.
Neither of those things are true. Neither of those things are true.
The movie end? How does the movie end?
He did not implant the movie. He did not implant the memories into her, and he's trying to essentially woo her. Like he's not like forcing her into anything.
I thought it was pretty clear from earlier in the movie that they said that they chop up and recycle memories left and right from all kinds of different humans.
They do. The
And
aliens
both
do.
of these people have been injected. Every human in there has been injected.
Her memories are
they
not
were
her
never
own.
actually
No.
married.
No. Her memories are not her own. But you said that he implanted false memories, and he did not.
Does he or does he not like give her some memories at the end of the movie? Maybe I just missed that. You guys watched it too. Am I way off base here?
I think I don't know if he gives her memories. They are obviously together at the end of the movie. You know, I don't know if it.
I thought he used his like tuning power to be like, "You're gonna be with me now."
I don't think he.
No,
did
that's
that.
not how the tuning power works.
Yeah, the tuning power just changes the physicality of things. I think.
Because in order to get somebody's memories, they had to inject it into the head.
Yeah, they have to inject it into their head. And I don't think he does that. Now, I don't know if you want to use the word coercion. He clearly is at the end of the movie going to make an attempt to be with her,
and he has
more knowledge about about what is going on. So, however you want to, and
I stand by my vibes. Then
he does not implant memories in her, but he has the upper. It is a power difference between.
I gotta admit, by the end of this movie, I was just so ready to be done. I wasn't.
It's not entirely. It's not an entirely perfect scenario. I'll give you that. But something I wanted to say before I was interrupted, okay? And I did not want to bring this up, but you're forcing my hand here, Steve, okay? We have, because of the Matrix, we have a large subset of our population that is a bunch of right-wing weirdos who are using Matrix iconography and language to further their purpose. Now, if anything is so shallow that that can happen, then I think you've got a problem.
It does remind me, I just have to bring it up. It reminds me of one of my all-time favorite tweets that we try not to be too political on the show, but I'm just going to say it. It's exactly what it said. It was Elon Musk on Twitter, which I'll dead name Twitter. Elon Musk on Twitter said, "Take the red pill." And then Ivanka Trump responded to Elon Musk and said, "Taken." And one of the Wachowski sisters, I can't remember which one, responded to them both and literally just wrote, "Fuck you both." It's one of my all-time favorite
there you
Twitter
go.
moments.
Yep.
That was pretty great. I remember that. I mean, I guess you're right. I guess we'll have to touch out such fantastic cultural masterpieces and touchstones as Scarface, American History X, any movie that people have misinterpreted and wielded for their own ends. You're right. It just tosses out the entire message and point and an artistic value of the original.
I think in a lot of those movies, I mean, American History X, I don't really see a ton of people like flaunting that, but like Scarface, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that was a heavy-handed movie that it wasn't as smart as it thought it was, and people have been misusing it for decades. Yeah, absolutely.
The one that I think is the greatest offender, if we're really going to go down this route, is Fight Club, which
Oh
is
yeah,
effectively an anti-violent film.
That's true.
That people literally use to promote violence.
So we should discount everything about it then, because people have misinterpreted it and used it improperly.
I think it's some point. I think it's some
value is what Jeff.
No. That's not what I said. You're putting words in my mouth there. So back up for a minute
bring
here.
Up the red pill people?
Well, I think at some point, because if you're,
what was your purpose in bringing it up?
If the point, would you fucking let me talk? Jesus, I think if there's a point where something that you have is so horribly misinterpreted, I do think some of the fault can fall on the artist at that point. There's differences of interpretation, there's missing the point, but then if there are things that, like Scarface, like the Matrix, and again, I like the Matrix. But I'm saying that in terms of trying to make a movie and trying to make the point that you're trying to make, if it's that easy to miss the point and to make it, I do think that the artist has to take some responsibility for that.
You heard it here, folks. The Wachowski sisters, responsible for January 6th. I think it's more a function of what they were tapping into with the Matrix is something that probably has been recurring throughout human history, but especially in modern industrial times. and especially in Pax Americana, post World War II, and as our all the way up through our childhoods, and something that I think maybe colored Roger Ebert's perception a bit too, because he grew up in a little bit of a generation before, and I don't think he'd already achieved success and fame when this movie came out. There's a certain ennui that sets in, or that can set in. I'm just speaking for myself, but I'm pretty confident everyone on this podcast has experienced this at some point. It sets in. It's like we are privileged, middle class white guys, for the most part. That can get everything we want for the most part. Not everything, of course, but our basic needs, and fairly comfortable. There are struggles here and there, but for the most part, it's we don't have to worry about famines. We don't have to worry about our houses blowing down and being destroyed by a natural disaster. I mean, I guess that's probably not true, but not to the extent of humans in the pre-industrial times. Disease is it's prevalent, but nothing compared to 100 years ago. You're looking at me because of the pandemic, but if you just look at childhood mortality rates or anything like
a tuberculosis outbreak in the
safer in the last,
just
undeniable. Yes, undeniable.
Just to back that up, literally 100 years ago, 1 in 5 children just died.
My point is,
I said it's undeniable. I said it's undeniable, but
we have a lot of safety,
and let's not paint it like this is a perfect picture either.
Sure, but and I think what the Matrix reflects, or some of what the Matrix reflected that people saw in it is this all there is? Because people almost get a little bit bored, which is why probably sex sells and violence sells in movies and things like that. But when we're so safe relatively compared to our ancient ancestors whose animal brains we've inherited, you start looking for deeper meaning, and you start bumping up against the edges of the reality you're in. And so I don't think it's necessarily that the Matrix inspired these right-wing jackoffs, to take the red.
Never said that, to be clear. Never said that.
Well, to be fair, I did claim that you proposed the Wachowskis caused January 6th, and you did not rebut it.
You did.
I'm gonna go ahead and say your silence.
I don't rebut complete ridiculousness that don't deserve a response. If you want to go on Twitter and start saying that's what I said, go for it. See what kind of responses we'll get here.
I guess my point is, I think you said something to the effect of, like, if the art is such that it can be misinterpreted to such a bad extent, the artist deserves responsibility. It wasn't so much that the art is misinterpreted, it's the artists are holding up a mirror to society, and everybody can see in it themselves. They can see how they want. And it's not interpretation necessarily, it's just it was a universal truth for many people that watched The Matrix. Is
that it? That's it? Okay.
I think that's it.
You guys have made this very difficult.
Dark City made this very difficult. When I finished watching it last night, I'm like, there were some cool ideas in this. There were some cool looks and cool shots, but it sucks. But the more I thought about it, the more I read about it, I'm like, this is actually a lot harder than I thought.
Well, I tell you what, if we had to do it all over again, it's interesting we chose to compare these movies. I think we obviously compared these movies because these movies at the time were compared. The Roger Ebert review of both of them, he's talking about, in the Matrix review, he's talking about Dark City. They use the same set pieces and stuff. The rooftops were the same. The vibe I got watching it for the first time, Dark City, the vibe I got much more from it was The Truman Show.
That's what he said.
We said this 2 days ago. Steve and I were at lunch, and I was like, okay, have you watched Dark City? He said no. And I said, okay, I'm going to throw something out there. This won't ruin the show. I think this could have actually been a good pairing with The Truman Show. I literally fucking wrote that down. I literally wrote it. This is probably closer to The Truman Show right there.
Yes. In some ways.
That's A Beautiful Mind is what that's closer to right there.
Yeah, I mean,
with chicken scratch. That's what.
Brilliant minds think alike, obviously. And particularly because, the reality is that as similar as these movies are, The Matrix is an action movie, and Dark City is not an action movie.
And that was my argument for Blade.
Yeah.
For Blade being the comparison.
Right.
And especially something that's interesting too, we looked it up. Dark City and the Truman Show came out like 2 months apart, 3 months apart, whereas it was almost a full year before The Matrix came out.
But you're right. I saw some guy on Reddit when I was looking through, just trying to see what other people were saying. They're like, The Matrix is an action movie with philosophical undertones, and Dark City is a philosophical movie with action sequences. It's like, yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Good summation.
Yeah. I think that I have made a decision. It was very difficult. Honestly, this is about as even as I can recall it being. Despite him missing, I think, a couple of key arguments that I would have done if I'd been arguing for the movie, I am going to go with The Matrix tonight and side with Steve. Primarily for his arguments regarding, I do really agree with his arguments about the editing. I think the editing is much too fast. And I agree with you, Jeff, that there's incredible ideas here, and the noir and the way it's shot is beautiful, but it just doesn't ever. There's something about how rushed it felt, and it never really hangs on. And for me,
especially at the beginning of the movie, I feel like it got a little bit better, but for the first hour, it's just
yeah. But again, though, if we had to do it over again, I would have compared Dark City to The Truman Show, because really, what it really felt like was the ending of Dark City is fantastic, where he goes out on that pier, and it's how
it was
much
almost exactly like the Truman Show when he reaches the wall of the set, and
yes,
that's exactly that's when I wrote down in my notebook.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great ending. I also, as the judge, I'm just saying, I disagree, Jeff, a little bit with your arguments about the Matrix. I totally, I think you're making a solid argument to say they needed all these other movies to explain the story. I think that, despite the fact that I use it a lot, I think that Roger Ebert is wrong about The Matrix. I think that the conclusion of The Matrix, and this, no one made this argument. I've made my decision based on the argument Steve made, so I'm just kind of spitballing here. The you know Him stopping the bullets, and this notion of, the finality of it is that the question that is being asked in that movie, just The Matrix, is it possible to break free of this system and break free of this control? And is it possible to do that even in ways that we would deem miraculous? Because Neo dies. Neither of you brought up kind of the religious aspect of this, but there's obviously some religious overtones to Neo's death and resurrection. There's obviously Christian things. There's a lot of Buddhist things in the Matrix. I think that his breaking free of the system, though, and his stopping of the bullets is a conclusion that is more than satisfying. I think it's just a completely eye-opening and world-altering kind of thing. And I just disagree with Ebert. Ebert just said, "Oh, it all just comes down to a shootout." It's like, well, that's not really what it comes down to. I mean, there's the shootout and the fights are before that, but ultimately, what the conclusion is that Neo breaks free of the constraints of what the Matrix is.
But see, and I disagree there because I don't think that the entire point of the movie isn't just can you break free, it's what does it mean when you break free? And we don't get that question answered. He breaks free, and then Roger Ebert, he even in his review, he even said that. He's like, we don't get a satisfying conclusion because okay, let's play this out. Say Neo wins. What happens? What happens to all the people that are still plugged in? What happens? And they try and answer this question as they go through the next few movies, and they don't. They fumble it horribly. The next two movies are, despite some of their great set pieces, I know you said you're a Reloaded apologist, but they are convoluted. They are poorly organized. Like the structure is bad. Like the movies themselves, I wouldn't call bad, but in terms of trying to create a perfect through line there, it's not there.
The third
And
one really
I think
fumbles it.
the I remember being, as much as I loved The Matrix, even at the time, I remember in the theater being disappointed. Neo's on the phone, and I was like, oh shit, he's coming. We're getting something else after all that action. And nope, that's it. And I was like, oh man, that's it. And then I immediately said, we're gonna get a sequel. We need to get a sequel. Of course we did. But With Dark City, I wasn't like, oh man, what happens next? Where's the sequel? I was like, okay, that's a satisfactory conclusion.
Yeah, I think that they both, just looking at the Matrix without sequels, I think they both certainly have there's an ambiguity to their endings, and maybe a little less satisfaction with the Matrix. Um, I
I think
again,
the
that kind of
ambiguity is intentional with Dark City, and I think with the Matrix, it is setting up for a sequel essentially, and that I
yeah.
felt robbed. I remember feeling robbed at that time because I was like, "This is we didn't know we were
I
getting the sequel at that time."
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, and I think but you could look at a lot of movies that I think do that. I mean, interesting that uh, like the movie Unbreakable, M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, kind of ends that same way. That we sort of
I
see
love
these
that
heroes
movie, and I
journey.
hate the ending too. Same deal.
Okay,
What
okay,
about The Godfather? We just watched this.
and that kind of, yeah. I mean, I think, but and they made which, as we're all about to find out, they made a really good sequel to that.
Does The Godfather stand on its own without the sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ends in a similar way. This is a guy
No,
that
it
has
doesn't.
gone. This guy's gone on a journey. He's realized who he is, who he can be, and he's assumed his full powers. What is he going to do with that power? We don't know.
No, because that wasn't ever a question. The question wasn't ever, "What does your family do, Michael?" It is, "Michael, you're not a part of the family." Now, the question in the Matrix is twofold. They ask both those questions. Can you break free of the system? And then once you do, can we save humanity? And we get answers to one, we don't get answers to the other. But we get an answer in The Godfather to, does he fall to the pressure of his family? And he does. And we actually get an answer for what he does because he kills all the heads of the other five's families and then he says we're moving to Las Vegas. So we do get an answer to that of what he's going to do
much
as
more.
well.
I think it can be much more analogized than you're giving it credit for.
I
Nate,
don't
you're the
think
film
so.
historian. What do you think?
I think that, yeah, it's hard with The Godfather to separate it from Godfather. Part of the problem with using The Godfather as an example is we were all born after The Godfather, so we've always had The Godfather Part 2, and we've always seen those as kind of as
Not
a
me.
collective.
I still have no idea what
Yeah,
happens.
except for Steve.
But
He's
and
on the
part
edge of
of
his seat.
and The Godfather was from a book, and part
Yeah,
2 also includes part of the book. Granted, it's flashbacks, but so
yeah.
it's Godfather Part 1 and 2 are sort of its own animal there. Like, I think your better argument to be made would be something like Terminator 1. And is
Yes.
the
I
ending
was
to
thinking of
that
Terminator.
That's an
is the
excellent.
and no,
It's a
there's a
good
reason I
point.
like Terminator 2 better.
But that doesn't
We get a
cheapen
satisfying conclusion. We get a much more
Terminator.
satisfying conclusion in Terminator 2 than we do in Terminator 1.
Well, so some of this is it's personal preference and what is satisfying enough to you. What makes an ending good enough.
I think they're both great movies. I really did enjoy Dark
Yeah,
City.
and
I will
don't
say,
construe this as me say I've said it a billion times. I love The Matrix. This
He
is
hates
not
the Matrix.
I'm not hates The
the
Matrix
one
started January 6th.
the one the one thing I did have to and I haven't brought it up, and neither of you really brought it up. In Dark City, what I thought was sillier than Kiefer Sutherland's performance was the final tuning battle between the
It was
protagonist and
so
the main
bad.
alien, where they're shooting the little circles out of their head. That was pretty silly, and I didn't allow that to cloud my judgment. I still listened to the arguments. I thought that was
I had that in my
a
notes,
little.
but Jeff
I
got me
thought it was.
so sidetracked.
But
I
it is
thought
and
that
it
was.
I mean
Go ahead.
Alex Proyas is a director. He hasn't directed a ton of movies, but his background was in music videos. He directed The Crow. And so he does have a very, very strong comic book influence. That's a very comic booky thing that happened there. And I get it. I wasn't a huge fan of it either.
Yeah, he's
But
got a medium that isn't bound by stasis. It can move. So why have something where your main guy is just
yeah, but then kind of I don't know. But
You get it,
it's
Steve.
my eyes were burning. We're gonna have
I
to
think
release
you're.
video,
I
otherwise
guess.
people
I
are
guess
gonna be like, "What the hell?"
if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably seen The Matrix. There's maybe a chance. I mean, I host the podcast, and I had not seen Dark City. I think if you're listening to this podcast, you've gotten to this point, and you've seen The Matrix, and you've never seen Dark City, you should definitely go watch Dark City. It's definitely
'cause
something that, if you like any of those movies, like Christopher Nolan, I read this. In reading about the movie, Christopher Nolan, when he was writing Inception, he was talking about all these movies, and he specifically said, the 13th Floor and The Matrix and The Truman Show and Dark City. There were these movies right around the turn of the millennium of like, what is reality? Like, what is this reality we're in? And I think if you like those kind of movies, the really cool, interesting subgenre of movies that all came out kind of at the same time, and I think they're all worth a watch. And Dark City is, certainly top of that list of those kind of movies that you'd want to watch.
Yeah, and just to kind of go back to the whole story aspect, like I think if you can remove the ridiculousness of how the physical fight took place, we've got that fight in the movie. That same fight happens in The Matrix between Neo and Agent Smith, and we get to the very end of the third movie before that happens. Have to sit through like 6 hours of content before we get there. And it still doesn't feel earned at that time.
I mean, hang on, I'm trying to remember.
It's interesting too because if now, since the decision has been made, since we can talk about the sequels, we can talk about the fact that it's all about, can you break out from the system in the first movie, but then they essentially flip that back and say, can you they then ask, can you ever really break free from the system? Because then we get the concept of matrices within a matrix.
That's what I love about Reloaded. I love in Reloaded that, and I said this in my TikTok a couple weeks ago, that it's one of the few. It's not the best sequel ever made. It's not better than The Matrix, but it is one of the few sequels that I know of like a major big budget Hollywood studio production. It completely subverts the mythology of the first movie and is brave enough to do that. Where we learn that Neo's the one and we think that's the conclusion, and then Reloaded tells us that even the one, the prophecy of the one, is a planted mythology by the machines. That the machines actually allow Zion to that how even Zion and this idea of freedom is something that is constructed by the machines to give human beings the idea that they're free. That's brilliant. I mean, I say in my TikTok, I think Reloaded has the best ideas of any film in the Matrix series.
And that's a good sort of microcosm of the sort of fatal flaw, if you will, of the Matrix that should have gotten me the victory this week, but just that it asks these questions, but we still don't get a satisfying conclusion to them, a satisfying answer, at least not as satisfying as the ones we got in Dark City.
I guess I wasn't as satisfied by the answers in Dark City as you were either. I mean, we never learn what is causing the aliens to be dying. We never truly learn, what is the secret of humanity. He has some vague line about, you were looking in the wrong place for the soul, I guess implying that it's in our heart and not our heads, but we don't really get much of a conclusion there. We just get him having a new beginning. I mean,
I'm sorry, following what you're like. You didn't like. I mean, we don't know exactly what it was. Morpheus even literally says, we don't know exactly how it happened. And you're okay with accepting that, but you're not okay with accepting what is causing the aliens to die.
I said, right? I don't think it's as satisfying as an ending as you think it is, because there are still these questions that are left out there.
But then we still have those questions with the Matrix.
Okay, and I've already told you that I'm more comfortable with these movies having more open-ended things. So
it's
the whole argument we went through.
So you're but I'm getting at, right, you understand this, I hope. What are you, why are you comfortable with it for one movie but not with another? I don't understand.
Because The Matrix is better in almost every respect, so it's okay. Like the movie is more how is that a dumb answer? The movie is more than just whether
it's not any content. The movie's better in every way. Okay. I mean, we've already talked about how much. We just
spent an hour and a half me telling you why it's better in every way. So, shall we start again, sir? No, the point is,
I think
a movie is not just whether or not it has a satisfying ending or not. It's not the only thing that makes me decide on whether a movie is good or not.
But
so okay. if they both
even
have
though your biggest argument, one of your biggest arguments in Dark City is that it's not as satisfying as I think it is.
That wasn't one of my biggest arguments. I just said it right now in response to you saying that it definitely has a more satisfying ending. I'm saying I don't think it's as satisfying as you are giving, or I don't think it is quite as satisfying as you are claiming it is. there are more open-ended questions in Dark City than you are saying.
I never said there wasn't any open-ended questions. There are open-ended questions by design, but sometimes it can still be satisfying to have open-ended questions. But it's not as satisfying in The Matrix.
We're clearly never going to agree on this.
Well,
one thing is clear: The Matrix is a Steve movie, and Dark City is a Jeff movie, and we got to sign the right movies.
Yeah,
that is very obvious.
This is literally I'm 1-4 now. This is the 5th week. I have never been given what conventional wisdom would say is the better movie. I know we've left it up to the wheel, so I'm not blaming anybody, but I want to put this out there.
Maybe you're in the Matrix, and this is a computer program designed to thwart you.
Who's the judge next? Who's the judge next week?
Jeff, I think.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say next week, if we want to spin the wheel, I think those are two pretty evenly matched movies, and I got to tell you, for all the philosophizing we've done on this episode, next week we're gonna take a nice break. when we talk about Rookie of the Year versus Little Big League, two films that we've paired because they have to do with children being involved in a Major League Baseball franchise.
And owning or managing a Major League Baseball team, or no, playing for or managing a Major League Baseball
playing
team.
for or managing a Major League Baseball team. So before
we get there, before we get to the wheel spin, I gotta get my couple 2 cents in, which really isn't a lot. I just, something I thought was very weird was like the first 3 minutes of Dark City felt like the opening to a Tim Burton Batman movie. I don't know, it was like just the whole filming of it. I was like, what am I watching?
Roger Ebert mentioned Batman in his review of the way the city is constructed.
So, look, I already said that at the top that I agreed with Nate that I felt Matrix was going to win. It was the better movie. However, I want to say that I feel like if somebody listens to this episode and has seen, for whatever reason, has never seen either of these movies based off argument alone, I feel like Jeff smoked Steve. If only because Jeff gave examples of what was good and what worked in Dark City and what he felt was a good movie. Steve spent 95% of his time talking about why Dark City was trash, and then the other 5% talking about why Matrix was revolutionary.
You guys told me I couldn't talk about all the things that made the Matrix the Matrix.
No.
You literally said that up to the beginning.
No, that was your interpretation. Nate just said bring something new to the table.
Like there was no, it felt like
30 years of discourse about this movie, and my dumb ass is going to come up with some fat, diamond in the rough that no one has encountered at this point. No.
I don't know. I just felt like most of it was defensive, and I feel like Jeff made a couple arguments to just teed Steve off in the right direction, that where wasn't like, here's my opening argument. It was, I'm starting this by telling you why Jeff is wrong about practical effects, and that's just it just felt like it snowballed.
I'm never spending this much time on any argument ever again. You guys are getting inferior arguments for the rest of the season. Because the outcome of this episode.
My decision is final. I thought Steve's arguments were better. I was transparent about what I thought was the better movie. I didn't hide that bias from the very beginning. I admitted it at the very top of the hour, and I listened to the arguments, and I said it was very close, and I think you both made good arguments, and they're both great movies.
Here's what you did do, though, that you were not supposed to do. You watched Dark City. And I thought we were deciding that we were not.
But I haven't
seen judges.
That's the problem.
Yeah, if I've never seen the movie, I gotta watch the movie.
If we're truly basing it on arguments, then do you? Because I even told my wife before.
How does he know my argument is true?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Or even close to the realm of reality.
That is the fatal flaw in the judge doesn't watch it thing, which is one of the reasons I've been wrestling with it. But that is what we talked about. And I told my wife, I said, if Nate hasn't seen this, then I think Jeff's got a real good shot at winning, because the arguments themselves. Yeah, I mean, you have to experience the awful pacing of Dark City to truly appreciate it. Like, Nate, if you had not seen it, would my discussion of its weird pacing, you wouldn't even have come close to understanding.
Certainly no. Like, it wouldn't have landed. But again, I feel like it's important for me as the judge to defend myself and say that, like, I thought that was a very good argument.
I think we should impeach the judge.
Dark City.
That wasn't even an argument
with you,
as much as it is a
Steve.
rebuttal. If I hadn't talked about the good editing and the good pacing, would you have brought that up, Steve?
Oh yeah, that was like my number one. I'm not I'm not being hyperbolic at all. I truly found the editing just so off-putting. Like I said, especially at the first hour. And I don't know if it did not click with me, but and I'm not being hyperbolic here. It almost felt like they were cutting off the end of lines. It was happening so fast, and it just was very, very strange and off-putting.
So halfway through the movie, I turned it off and went, I'm going to come back to this later. I couldn't, in one sitting, I couldn't sit through it.
I remember you texted at the beginning, you're like, this is interesting or something like that.
And I think what made it different for me was, you know, like when you think of truly classic, like bad editing, right? Like Bohemian Rhapsody, that's the most recent one that a lot of people really talk to. That is over edited like hell. I haven't seen it either, but I've seen the clips that people have
ironically won the Oscar for best editing.
I was told it was a good movie.
I think it's because they salvaged it.
And I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
That's why it won.
And then I've also seen clips of like there's a Liam Neeson movie where he jumps over a fence and it's basically stop motion in terms of the editing is so bad.
It's a sequel to Taken. It's like Taken 3.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's absolutely atrocious. It is. If you want to see bad editing, Steve, look that up and then you'll know. But the reason I think it was different for me was because it wasn't editing within a scene as much as it was editing from scene to scene. That was quick. It jumped around a lot to a lot of different places, a lot of different people. And I thought that, to me, that just evoked a certain feeling that I think it was trying to evoke. I'm not saying I'm right here, but that's just for me. That's why I think it felt different than, you know, it's not 6 different angles cutting around, you know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it was more it was the how quick they were cutting from shot to shot. And doing it within like when dialogue was happening.
I was actually asking myself, because I noticed it was fast, and I was actually asking myself, why don't I feel like, because I've had Matsu movies where I was like, this pacing is terrible. And I'm like, why don't I feel that way with this movie? And that was sort of the conclusion I came to. But again, I'm not saying I'm right here. I am right, but I'm not saying I'm right.
All right, Jeff. Who am I spinning the wheel for?
Let's go with Nate.
Nate, do you have a preference as to which one you'd like to see, or be the judge of?
I have a preference, but I don't want to say it. This whole season, a little background, or I shouldn't say this whole season, like it wasn't necessarily my idea. The notion, one of the notions for this season started when a colleague of mine texted me asking me what I thought was the better of these two movies. And I think that was that kind of prompted one of the first conversations we had. So it was these two movies that were initially paired in my mind, and I was like, God, that'd be an interesting podcast season. I have a preference, but the way the season's going, I don't want to say what my preference is.
All right, that's fair enough.
Should I admit
blood might be spilled by the end?
Should I admit what my since we're doing this now, we admit our biases, what we think is the better movie?
I don't think that that's what we're doing now.
It's like the last 3 weeks it's happened.
We're just trying to be honest and candid with you.
Well, you're a judge.
Do you want me to be honest and candid with you, or do you want me to keep it close to the vest here?
I would prefer to hear.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear it.
Take off your headphones.
I will be honest, and I think Rookie of the Year is the superior, more memorable film.
All right,
of these two.
I always liked that one a little bit better.
All right,
but I have no real preference.
Screw it. I'll just say it. I wanted Little Big League, and now I want it.
All right, Nate.
What's the challenge?
You get Little Big League.
Look at that. Is this even not that these are two movies where critical acclaim really matters?
Oh, I can't wait to hear what Roger Ebert had to say about either of these movies.
I feel like Rookie of the Year is generally considered the better one. Not that either of them are considered.
Rookie of the Year has probably entered the popular zeitgeist more than Little Big League. I mean,
Rookie of the Year is at 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Little Big League is at 35%. For what that's worth.
Are these the audience or much hard
scores? I believe it's critics. It's just the one that pops up on Google.
Well, what does the audience say? I care a little more about the audience.
All right, so Little Big League audience score is 54%, and Rookie of the Year is 52%.
Ooh.
Those are honestly both critics and audiences. That's pretty even. Like those are both pretty close numbers.
Yeah, that's pretty. And these two movies this week were pretty close with at least with the critic scores. I didn't.
That was
check
another
the
thing. In my original strategy, I was like, I'm gonna go just mop the floor and show. They were like almost the same. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. Although I'm guessing Dark City is an 85% fan rating. That is surprising.
Wow.
I wonder how many people have seen the director's cut as their
and 85% for The Matrix. That's crazy. Like Dark City is definitely a me movie, but I have lots of movies that are me or Jeff movies that lots of people. I don't even know. One of my favorite movies of all time is Mulholland Drive, but I don't think you even finished that, Steve.
I did finish it. I did not like
Did
it.
you finish it? Okay.
It. Yeah.
I kept wanting to talk to you about it, and you're like, nah, I don't know what to talk about.
I'm just not a David Lynch guy, I guess.
We're going to do David Lynch someday. I'm going to force you to talk about these movies. We're going to do David Lynch in one of these seasons. All right,
Brandon, you want to take my spot for the David Lynch season? You can teach
you
me how to run the
David
board.
Maybe.
All right, so next week I'll beat Steve and I'll win the argument. I already have. I don't even need to watch the movies. I already have my argument ready to go. I could do it right now. We could record it right now.
Well, why even record it? Just like the beginning of this one, right?
We watched Rookie of the Year recently to show it to my daughter.
Did she like it?
So
I'm gonna make both of my boys watch them with me because neither one of my kids have seen either of those.
Oh, really? Yeah, you have a double feature movie night.
Yeah.
Boom.
What was the phrase we almost put in the opening song?
Gee, Henry, you should play for the Cubs.
Oh yeah.
But we found it maybe a little too childish when compared to the other sound bites.
Maybe we make a special exception just for next week. We make an alternate version.
All right.
There's a lot of sound bites in those movies that we could use. Like we could just make a whole sound bite of just those movies.
It'll be fun. I'm looking forward for some lighter fare here.
Yes, I agree. All right, well,
especially before the movies we're going into after that.
What are those?
What's that? I can't remember.
The Illusionist and
that'll be a fun week. That'll be a fun week.
So am I judging that? Good. I think I've honestly had more fun this season as a judge than arguing.
We already know Nate's gonna get the prestige. We already know that's what's gonna happen.
Well, that is episode 7. If you've stuck with us,
socials.
Be sure to follow on all of our socials. As our producer is just reminding us, we are at Duel of the Greats on Instagram. Actually, we're at Duel of the Greats pretty much everywhere. We're duelofthegreats@gmail.com if you'd like to send us some fan mail. The only place that we're not Duel of the Greats is TikTok, where we are Duel Podcast. So look for us wherever you go to social media, and we will be happy to hear from you. And that is episode 7, and we'll see you next week. If you're watching along, Little Big League versus Rookie of the Year. Watch those, and we'll talk about them next week.